teachers create opportunities for children to see themselves as successful readers and writers, they foster literacy motivation and engagement within and across lessons.
All right, hey guys, my name is Miss Boyd and I teach 7th grade ELA at South Lawrence, and we're currently studying The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. He's the OG of Gothic horror. And on Friday, we worked on unreliable narrators. And so my students have been provided with a rubric, and we all want to score a 4, that lists the most important criteria, including what your topic sentence looks like, how much text evidence, and making sure that text evidence is thoughtful and strong and focuses on the central idea. We really are working hard on elaboration, using phrases like "it implies," "it infers," making sure we're expanding on the quotations. Also, we want to make sure we use varied word choice. So the students have been doing vocabulary activities, looking for strong synonyms that they can replace certain words that they kind of overuse. And then, of course, grammar usage and mechanics. So the students already have a foundation. They know, as they are studying Poe, what the expectations are for a quick write. And for me, a quick write is approximately 140 words, and it's going to be 12 minutes. It's going to be timed because we're practicing for the state writing assessment, and we want to, again, hit all of these points that I just mentioned. What's the purpose of this rubric I've given them? Well, guys, I really think it aligns to the state writing test. And, they can focus on relevant textual evidence and, like I mentioned, that varied word choice. And they just want to be effective communicators. So what they're going to do, what they have done, is they've done that quick write. For the students that needed a little bit extra help, I provided closed sentences for them with the topic sentence and giving them some sentence starters to help them with the quotations. But today they're going to do peer evaluation. So when you see the students come in later, we're going to use the wheel of names. A student's name is going to be selected. We're going to use the Go Guardian software to place their writing piece on the Boxlight panel. And all of the students have been told what constructive criticism is. They're going to tell some positive things about their peers' work. They're also going to tell the student that has been selected things that they need to do for improvement. The goal for this, it's peer-to-peer constructive feedback. So if they review another student, they're thinking critically, they're working on editing. It's a great way to collaborate. It's research-based, which is always important. I think it helps with self-regulation and just a deeper understanding of the writing skills that we're looking for. And no one can hide in class because of the wheel. It's very engaging. And random students are selected because, everybody's got to be on their A game. Everybody has an equal chance to present. And it's just going to broaden their writing strategies. And most students at this point in the year want to be selected, not just because they get a ring pop because theirs is read out loud, because they want to hear feedback from everybody else about what they've done right, so we can brag on them and see how they've grown throughout the year, but also get some strategies for what they could do for improvement. So again, we've already done scaffolding. Closed sentences provided for those that need it so we can differentiate. They know what the criteria is. They all have the rubric, the expectation. They know Go Guardian software is used when they do the time right as well as today. No one can hide. Everybody's working hard, doing their very, very best. So I hope you guys enjoy some of the conversations that these 12 and 13-year-old students are going to provide for you in just a bit. We're also going to talk about what we had worked on this past Friday as well. So today is 11/18/24. I'm going to put that on the Boxlight panel. You can also see it not just from Google Classroom, but it's also on my classroom screen. Is the weather outside nice, folks? Yes. Okay, so let's take a look at our instructions. So we're going to start with the wheel of names, and we know how that works. We're going to look at the writing piece that we had done on Friday, And then we're going to do some peer evaluation. We're going to listen to someone read their work, and then we're going to talk about some things that we think they have done really well using our rubric. We're also going to talk about things that maybe they could do for improvement, because not only does it help them, it helps you guys too, doesn't it? I think a lot of you enjoy when yours is called out because it gives you an opportunity to make edits to the work before I go back and grade it myself. So that's listed first. It ties in nicely with point of view. So we'll be watching a video probably after lunch, and we're going to review first person, second person, third person, limited and omniscient, and then we're going to do a little handout that kind of relates to questions you might see on the state test in relationship to point of view. We have vocabulary today, that's important. We're going to do that at the very end. If time permits, I know this is what Fletcher's been waiting on, we're going to do some debate prep, because we're going to have a court case on Friday where we decide whether or not the narrator in the Telltale Heart is legally insane. So we'll see if we get to part 5 today. We always plan extra just in case. All right, would you go ahead and please mark that you have seen it, you are aware of it. You'll be going back to your Chromebook later when you do the point of view activity. Now you can move to amplify. And let's go back to lesson number 3, examining the reader's perspective. We're going to talk about that objective and the writing we had done on Friday and how that's going to tie in nicely with this little activity. What picture pops up when you come to lesson 3, examining the reader's perspective? How do we know if we're on the right screen, Alexis? It shows a lantern. Who was holding the lantern in the story, Fletcher?
The narrator.
He, the narrator. Did he have a name? It never told his name, which made it so much more suspenseful, didn't it? But he was the caretaker in the story. Does anybody remember what point of view or perspective the Telltale Heart was told in? Do you remember, Finn?
First person.
First person point of view. Okay, what's the problem with first person point of view? Do you see any issues or concerns with that? We discussed that last week. What's the problem with just using I, me, or my and doing a first person perspective? How could that be a struggle or difficulty for the reader? What do you think, Jackson?
Unreliable narrator.
Unreliable narrator. You're exactly right. So we're going to have to talk about this again in high school, aren't we? So we want to go ahead and know that Edgar Allan Poe is well known for using unreliable narrators in his story. And if they're unreliable, it means we can't do what, Brooklyn? We can't rely on them. We can't trust them that they're actually telling us how the events really unfolded. And Jackson said before, we could kind of like poke holes in the plot, couldn't we? And we're going to discover that some of the things that the narrator said, well, we just couldn't trust him. We can't believe that it's true. That's why third person is usually better, because you get an overview about what other people think in the story, not just one individual. Okay, so unreliable narrator. How many of you on the Writing Piece Friday decided to go with disagree? Raise your hand. I disagree that what the narrator is telling me is true information. Well, that looks unanimous, doesn't it? All right, very good. You can put your hands down. So that means all of us truly understand what an unreliable narrator is, and all of us could poke holes in what Poe used as that first person perspective. Now, we brainstormed in class on Friday. We put a list of ideas as to why we perhaps disagreed. Can you remember any of the reasons why you thought our narrator was untrustworthy? Because unanimously you guys said, I put disagree, so you should have come up with at least 2 or 3 points. What are some of the things we brainstormed or discussed last week? Rosa? So he's paranoid, isn't he? He believes he's being mocked or made fun of by the police officers, and there doesn't really seem to be any other information that supports that claim. Very good, Rosa. Somebody I hadn't heard from, want to try one? Stella?
He was hearing voices that I was hearing.
Yes. We can't hear what he claims to have heard. Everything in heaven, hell, on earth. He plays it off like he just has acute senses. But we know he was more than likely probably hallucinating. So he doesn't have a lot of credibility, does he? Which makes him seem very unreliable. So other than the paranoia from the mocking, the unreliability of saying he can hear things that no one could hear, what else would be a reason why you think he's probably not trustworthy and you wholeheartedly wouldn't disagree? Mr. Ritchie?
He already just removed water and put it on the floor, so he could somehow still hear the water.
Absolutely. So he cut up those body parts in the bathtub and then he hid them under the scantling or the floorboards, but yet he said the heart was still beating. So if we know anything about basic science, that heart would not be beating as he claimed it would be while the police officers and he were having that conversation. One more. So we got some really, really good answers where I think we're going to be able to find some good text evidence to support those claims. I hadn't heard from Kara today.
Because he killed someone over a home.
Yes, it just seems ridiculous. One, that he was bothered by that eye. I mean, we said just put a eye patch over it, right? You don't have to kill the man. And then saying, I have a new nervousness. The heart continuously is beating. I'm afraid the neighbors are going to hear. And I'm going to have to just get rid of the man. I'm going to have to kill him over it. So he has no credibility whatsoever. Very good. All right, would you please now go to part 5 on lesson 3. Again, our writing piece was comparing your perspective of the events to that of the narrator. And we're trying to look for some textual evidence to support those claims. Would you make sure to choose, I believe it's the second bubble, where it kind of blows up your work really nice and large where everyone can see it. Also, something I think that would be really helpful, if you have it handy, would you get out your rubric that you were provided that has the 1 through 4, 1 being the worst, 4 being the best. And I'm going to get a copy of it before I talk to Finn. And I'm going to hold it up to make sure everybody remembers what it looks like. Remember, the purpose of this is to keep you on track. It's a kid-friendly version of what body paragraphs would look like. We want to make sure we have good topic sentences. In this case, where we rephrase what the prompt is asking. We want to make sure we select credible quotations, those that are the best to support the central idea. Any old quote thrown in is not going to cut it. It has to match what we're trying to say, what our claim is. We want to elaborate. What are phrases that would indicate good elaboration? You don't have to raise your hand, but just tell me. So I provide a quote and then I want to elaborate. So after the quote, I might say, this explains, this means, this shows, or here's a really good one, this infers. That's right, Jackson. So the more of those that we can remember from the rubric and use in our writing, it's going to ensure that we definitely elaborate or add more of ourselves to the writing pieces. What does it mean when we talk about word choice or varied word choice? Because some of you, that's what we're focused on right now. You do a great job with the skeleton or the bare bones of the rubric and you fit all those pieces, but we really want to score a 4. So we're working on varied word choice. Jackson, what does that mean? Please. We don't want to use words like hate and love. Those are so boring, right? What's a better word for love? I like that. See, I put you on the spot and you came up with a really good one. So the more vocabulary words we can utilize, we're not so repetitive or redundant in our writing, and we want to have 7th grade vocabulary in our writing, if not higher. Grammar usage and mechanics is also important, but this was timed. So if the worst thing, you forgot to capitalize a letter at the beginning of a sentence, we can easily go back and fix that. All right, Mr. Finn, what was your question?
My Chromebook powered off. It might be dead. It might not.
Oh, you plug it in. We're not going to leave you out. We want to make sure that you're ready to go. And I can put it on that tech list for you in a little bit, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Had any trouble with it earlier today, or is this the first time? We'll figure it out. I'm glad you brought your charger. All right, so Andrew says I'm ready. Brooklyn's ready. Reagan, you ready? Okay. Let's go to the wheel. Jackson, you love to talk, okay? So you don't get nervous on me, all right? All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna pull Go Guardian over here, and we're gonna look at Jackson's writing piece. Give you guys just a minute. And then Jackson, if you don't mind, I would love for you, as we put yours up, if you would read it nice and clear and loud for us. And we're all going to look at our rubric, and we're going to decide, first of all, because this is constructive criticism, what are things that Jackson has done well, and I know he's going to do a lot of things correctly, and then what are things that Jackson could do for improvement. So would you read that to us, please, sir?
I disagree with the narrative description of what is happening in the protocol by the ground when the code. According to the text, I think it was the yes. I think it was the yes, it was this. This means he was trying to find some reason for him to do besides his phone. The author also states it was a low, quick, dull sound, much such a sound a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. Here is something else the author says that gives you more information. It is the beating of his hideous heart. This implies that he is insane for hearing a dead man's heart, which is impossible, so that is why I believe that the narrator is unreliable.
Very good. And Jackson, how many words did you have? 123. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So let's take a look at our rubric. Let's think about some of the other quick writes we've done, some of the longer culminating tasks or essays. Let's start with positive feedback. So get those hands up. What are some things that we can tell our classmate that he's done well? Peyton.
I like the vocabulary.
All right, so varied vocabulary words. Could you pick one maybe specifically that you thought was a good choice?
It says it was low, good sound.
All right, so he's using that as part of the quote to indicate the sound of the heart. What else, Alexis? Okay, so we go back and look at our rubric, and that would be part of elaboration, wouldn't it? It's very important once you provide a quotation that you go back and put in your own words why you support that quote. We can't just copy and paste. We don't do that in middle school, do we? We find an appropriate quote that we think supports our claim, we insert it, then we're going to elaborate or explain why we used it and how it relates to the overall writing prompt. Rosa?
I like how you said the narrator was like looking for a reason as to why he wanted to do it.
It's kind of like making an excuse, isn't it? Yeah, that's a good point to make. Stella?
I like how he said this involves.
Yes, we want to see as many of those words to show the elaboration pieces coming up. Very good. Okay, now we need to tell Jackson some things for improvement. And remember, while we're doing this, we're also kind of reflecting back on ourselves. You're looking at your work. What are things Jackson had done well that maybe you need to fix right now because you have the opportunity to resubmit it? Also, as we listen to things maybe he needs to do to make his work better, is that something that maybe you need to do as well? But we always say it with kindness, right? Brooklyn.
In his writing, he spells here H-E-A-R and H-E-H-E-R.
All right, so remember we have two here's, H-E-R-E and H-E-A-R. So if we're referring to the sound, that's going to be H-E-A-R. So he can easily change that now if he would like to, or he can wait until we move his off the screen. Whatever makes him feel comfortable. So just a minor spelling error there. Fletcher?
Felt like he could have made another point.
Okay, so do you feel like if he was having an argument with somebody, his debate needed to be a little bit stronger? So let's provide maybe Jackson with a suggestion. And he might say, I may have one myself. Do you have another quote you think would strengthen yours? What else could you have used? Okay, thank you for saying that. He said, I had another one, but it was time. Why do I time you on these activities? Is it to make you very nervous? No.
Just get ready.
We're trying to get you ready for the bigger full-blown SAP. So these are just the quick writes. If we never time ourselves, then are we going to be prepared come springtime? So, but this is your chance, Jackson. If you knew that you now had one you wanted to add, and you agree with Fletcher, it would make it much stronger. It's time-stamped and dated. I know he turned it in on time. He did what I asked him to on Friday. Now I want you to go back and revise, because that's part of the writing process. I want you to go back and make changes to it. Do you guys have a suggestion for a quote that he perhaps could find? You have a suggestion, Alexis? You don't have to read it word for word, but you can tell us, like in general, you can paraphrase something that you remember from the story. Okay, so he was being dishonest. He was not being truthful to them, so you think maybe that would show that he was not trustworthy. All right, very good. Do you have one, another point, or another quote, Hadley? That's good. Because he was content, he was happy. He didn't have any remorse, did he? Okay. Stella,
He could have put the definition of an unlawful marriage.
why do you think that's beneficial or important?
Because some people might not understand what that means.
That's exactly right. So you guys all take a look at your work. Did you provide somewhere within your paper, within your paragraph, a definition of an unreliable narrator? We have to make sure, we've said this before on quick writes and even in the culminating tasks, the much longer ones, we can't make assumptions. We can't say, oh, Miss Boyd knows what I'm talking about because she's read this story multiple times. It needs to be that someone else enters the room that's unfamiliar with the content and they can clearly read what you've written and not have really a lot of unanswered questions. So I would say, yes, absolutely, Stella. Let's all go back. Andrew's doing that right now. Reagan's doing that. Go back and make sure you have a clear-cut definition of unreliable narration. Fletcher, one more comment for Jackson.
Another quote. I feel like I heard all things in heaven and the earth. I heard many things in hell.
So Jackson, that's something we had brainstormed on Friday about the fact that he probably was hallucinating. He's not going to be able to hear all of those noises everywhere, right? All right, as I look at your work, I think if you put another quote to strengthen it and make sure you provide a definition of unreliable narrator, not only is that going to make it much stronger, but is it going to probably get him to the appropriate word count that I was looking for? All right, everybody give Jackson a hand.